This is the Fatty Joe Show, coming to you from Casa de Carrie, deep in the forests of Nutmeggerville. This show is dedicated to exploring pathways to better health from a holistic perspective. In each episode, we will explore such topics as nutrition, mental and emotional health, fitness, and more. I'm Yogi, your host, and I became interested in studying health after conventional health dogma became damaging and led me to become massively overweight. Against modern convention, I went on a keto lifestyle and I lost over 300 pounds and gained a level of control on my personal health that I never had before. Now I'm on a journey to find out what is myth and what is truth in the ever convoluted world of what is considered healthy. Come join me on a journey of discovery as I look for a path to improve total health. If you'd like to support the show, head over to patreon.com/thefattyjoeshow or patreon.com/Carrie Brown. If you want to check out all of our social media links and recipes, head to carriebrown.com. Don't forget to leave a comment, like, and subscribe to the show.
Hey, everybody. Welcome back to the Fatty Joe Show. It's been since the last episode, and we are coming from you from the Nutmegger Forest, deep in the heart of Carrieville and Casa de Carrie. And today we have a longtime friend of Carrie's, Aileen Rae. Aileen has a very interesting story where she basically upended the table on her life, changed everything around, went from corporate world into going with a trucker, and then now as an author and a turn your life around coach, and it's doing some amazing things. So we're going to get into her story, and this is really a cool story of taking a risk and having the mental mindset of getting out and doing something that maybe you're not comfortable with to really change your world and get a new perspective. So we're going to talk to her and about her 6-month mental health day. So, hi, Aileen. How are you doing today?
I am well. Thank you, Yogi. That is a really good way to put it. I've never thought of it that way before, but that's what I'm going to call it from now on. 6-month mental health day.
There you go. So you worked at Microsoft around the same time as Carrie did, and then you met one of us nefarious truckers and ended up on the road for 6 months. How did that work?
Yeah, that was a little while down the road. Well, so I had done online dating off and on for like 10 years, and I swore I would never do it again. But I had this kind of intuition, a nudge that I should try it just one more time. And within 4 hours of that, I spotted this person who looked like they were perfect for me. And it turned out that was my beloved Sunny D. And there was nothing slow about it. we moved in a week. We got engaged in 22 days, it was, what I can say about that is that I think that I was able to do that because he was a person I never thought I'd meet. And so when we met each other, it was right and we knew it. And we were able to act on it. It wasn't scary. That wasn't scary in terms of the unknown. It was scary because I knew. And I knew my life was going to change in some huge ways. And at our wedding ceremony, we were in this beautiful arboretum, and I looked out at one point and expected to see these beautiful flowers. And I kid you not, I had this vision of a long highway with a yellow line down the middle. And I thought, I don't know where I'm going, but it's going to be the road trip of my life. And about a few months before, he had said, I think we should, with all of our talents, we should like do this like bohemian thing, like you do all the things that you love and I'll do the things that I love and we'll like have this cool project, and I'm thinking, okay, fringe vests and velvet skirts and VW vans. And I don't really have time to talk about this because I'm working 80 hours a week and it sounds great, but I don't have time to figure out how to plan that. And it just turned out that it was too late for me to say no because I'd already said yes to the whole thing in the first place by saying yes to him in the first place. So after our wedding ceremony, 6 months later, I went to him and said, hey, what do you think about me joining you on the truck? And he was all for that. And I decided that what I wanted to do was I wanted someplace. I lived in my family home of nearly 50 years in Seattle. So big attachments. And I wanted to be nothing like anything I knew. So I picked out this tiny town in the high desert of southern New Mexico. Got my wish. It's nothing like that. Nothing like Seattle at all. And I just rode shotgun with him for 6 months. I shipped all my stuff to a place I had never been to. Wow. And it was exactly what my soul needed. As we were talking about earlier, there's really nothing else to do on a truck except be with yourself.
Yeah.
And none of my credentials really had any currency in the road. So I had a real chance just to be with me. And that was where my writing started to really emerge. And a lot of feelings started to emerge that needed to come out. And it's where I rediscovered my love of photography. So that's how those 6 months worked out. And there was a lot of evolution that came after that, sort of forming that into, okay, how do I want to serve people with what I've learned? But that's part of the trucker part.
Yeah. I spent my own time on the road, as most of the listeners know, and it's in some ways you uncomplicate your life, as we said off the air, and in a lot of ways you make your life even more complicated.
Totally.
And especially if you're coming from a corporate world, I imagine it had to be a bit of a culture shock when you got inside the truck. And how did you mentally handle this level of change?
Oh, that's such a good question. So, okay, Yogi, and I know you'll get this. I think your listeners will get it too, because it really is the little things. Okay. So I had been on some rides with him, but it was kind of like a novelty because I knew I'd be back in normal life, right? When I did this, I was leaving, like up until that point, there'd always been a home base, for example. So when he would go and come back, I'd always have like a fantastic meal waiting, like all of these great things. Now I'm on the road with him. I can't get a cup of coffee on demand, for example. That's the first thing I noticed. And when I get to the place where there's coffee available, it is the worst coffee. Now, they'll sell you a great big huge mug to pour it into for your refills. It's horrible. And it's not nearly enough caffeine. So that's one of the things. That was culture shock. And also, and I'm sure you could relate to this because I have seen some of the amazing things that you managed to make. I've been watching like what your photos and recipes and what you did. I've been watching it for a couple of years, and I'm like, and I even shared it with my husband. I was like, look at what this guy is doing, like in his refrigerator and on the stovetop in his truck. That's amazing. There's so few opportunities to really get quality food, right? And so I was really impressed with how you thought that through and made that happen. It's people think, oh, like great donuts and diners, right? And it gets really old. Eating out of commercial kitchens all the time, it's not a treat anymore. And I think those two things, just like living your life in a sustainable way so that you don't feel sluggish all the time. And there's a lot of sitting that happens. And that's really hard on your body. And I think sleeping in bunks is a really weird thing to get used to. Sleeping at truck stops is kind of like going to bed in a motel where everybody brings their own room.
Yeah.
Like nobody,
That's a good way to put it.
Everybody's from somewhere, but nobody's from anywhere. And I just learned to appreciate everything. I learned to appreciate the people who were there to make and sell me the lousy coffee, because they're still there dealing with everybody who comes and goes. I just learned to appreciate everything. But it also, literally, the ground was moving under me a lot.
Yeah. And I imagine the people that you were coming in contact was really different from your Microsoft days. And because one thing I could say about the driving community in general is different is a good term to use. There are so many backgrounds that are there, and then two, for some people, I think the isolation does something to them. I don't know.
Yeah, it can make them a little squirrely. It's true.
Yeah.
So you see a lot of people with companion animals.
Yes.
And that's actually how we ended up adopting our dog. There was a guy driving around, like, he had puppies. And so I agree with you. I think I was less taken aback by that, I think, mainly because I think my own story and the people that I grew up with and my own, and the people that I've worked with over the years, I didn't really come from an ivory tower. It's been a mad mix of characters in my own life, right? So I really wasn't too, clutching my pearls over the folks that I met there in the truck stop or other truckers. And I also found it interesting, exactly what you said, that there was such a variety of backgrounds. You cannot assume anything. I think that's true for land dwellers too, not just truck drivers. You can't assume anything by how someone looks, right? There are people there with who might have PhDs in something. There are people who used to be financial investment advisors. There's people there who they just don't want to be tied down. And there's other people who this is still an industry where drivers are needed and you can get employment even if you can't anywhere else. Sure. There's all kinds of reasons.
Oh, yeah.
In any case, they're always needed.
Now, with the truck, it's different when you're driving with a partner in the truck, if you're team driving or a student or for people. But generally, even if we're with someone, that person, when they're driving, they're focused on driving. So there's a lot of solitude.
Yes.
And so for most creatives, this is what most creatives thrive on, is this solitude of being able to do things. So how did riding in the truck affect or enhance or allow your writing to evolve to one way or another?
That's an interesting question. It really was an interesting, it affected my process, I think, most. The way, always the way I've written has been in spurts of kind of brain dump, and then go back and edit and add the transitions and smooth it out. And what I ended up doing is sort of capturing things in the moment on my notes app on my phone. And it was very much in the moment. And so I didn't try to do all of the writing in the moment, but I captured the moments. I made sure to stop and be in the moment. Same with photography. I would take all the shots and then I'd go back later and sort it out. And so now, I mean, when I probably had 30,000 shots after 6 months, and I had just a ton of notes. So, and now I do most of my writing on my phone app. And then when I'm pretty much ready to polish it up, I move it over to my laptop and do the rest of my thing.
That's pretty
which is
cool.
really, which is very strange because some of my pieces are quite long. And so it's kind of a quirky way to do it. But I would say that the way that the truck most affected my writing is just that it's kind of incredible that I do most of it on my phone.
But it's kind of a cool perspective to have, because most people think of a writer, they're thinking of the guy sitting down in the Starbucks coffee shop with his laptop and his headphones on, and he's getting inspiration and he's got to have this equipment, or the guy that's anchored to this classic antique typewriter they bought, and you're writing books on your phone. And this shows like an adaptability to the situation, and that's pretty amazing.
Thank you. I didn't think of it that way, but I appreciate you saying that. I think for me, it has been a relief, quite frankly, because I tend to have, 37 things going on in my head at the same time, if not more. And so it's very freeing to just be able to pick it up, jot it down, because sometimes a whole paragraph comes to me all at the same time, and sometimes it doesn't. And if I'm on a roll, I can really go. And if I'm not, I can set it down. I never know when it's going to happen. And I might not have my laptop, but I'm pretty sure I'm going to have my phone. So, and also but the solitude also was, that you mentioned, was definitely a huge, huge, huge factor. I would not have done that if I had stayed in my house in Seattle. I didn't. I was in my house in Seattle a long time. I didn't do it. Yeah. Right. And I think on the flip side of the solitude, Sunny D and I were together 24 hours a day, and we are now too. And that was a test that could make or break a relationship.
Yeah, I had for a while I drove with students, and I had my first student, who was my best student, sat in the truck one day, and he was an ex-con, and great guy. And he's looking around the truck one day. We both had our coffees, because I made my coffee in the truck, because truck stop coffee, as we talked about. And I had made our coffee, and he's sitting in the truck. We're getting ready to go, and we had done the pre-trip and everything like that. And we were just having to log in our half hour for the pre-trip. And he's looking around the truck, and he's looking at me. He's looking around the truck, and he's looking at me. And I'm like, okay, Greg, what is it? He goes, Yug, when I was locked up, they said it was cruel and unusual punishment to put two of us in a room twice this big. So it's definitely can put some stressors in any relationship to be that tight quarters for almost 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, because you don't have weekends. Most drivers don't. No. And that definitely had to be the forge that really forged, got your guys' relationship solid.
Yeah, because I did that like right around our first year anniversary.
Wow.
Yeah. It's I don't want to call it a test, but it really, I mean, I didn't do it to be a test, but it turns out that way, right? Yeah. But there's something kind of awesome about having seen your person at their worst and at their best. There's certainly a vulnerability to it, and it's a and it's really an honor, right? Because you're really being trusted with someone showing you that when they might not be at their like feeling their most evolved self, if you will.
Yeah.
You know. But that the reason I even did that was that I decided that I was going to when I met Sunny D, I realized, you know, it wasn't that I didn't change my life for him. I didn't upend it all for a guy. But what I realized was that it threw into sort of high relief, put a spotlight on the things that really weren't working that well. It's not that I didn't know it before, but now here's this like high beam, happy wonderfulness. And I was like, you know what? I need to release from my life everything that isn't shining as brightly as this new partnership. Yeah. And some of that was hard to let go of, but needed to be let go of. So.
Now, I mean, this is a challenging thing for anybody to do, to go outside of your comfort zone. It's definitely something I still struggle with every day, but we get used to our ritual and our routine to the point where that's what we embrace. Mm-hmm. What was the mindset that really kind of pushed you in? I mean, did you have like an identifying moment that just was like, okay, this is it?
Yeah, I did. For a long time, I wanted to change everything without changing anything. I felt for a number of years, it was like hearing a phone ringing in the distance, but I couldn't figure out where it was to answer the call. And I'd even had this experience back in 2006. I went to this career development workshop. It was like a whole weekend. It was at this fancy hotel in downtown Seattle, and several days. And I had all these great ideas, all this stuff I was going to do. I knew then what I was going to do. And on one of the nights, I was awakened out of like a deep sleep by this loud voice that said, "Stop doing work you hate for people you don't trust." And I looked around the room and I'm like all by myself in the room, right? That was a clairaudient experience. And I wasn't scared, but I was like, this is it? This is what you guys got to tell me? And I felt like I need to do something. But, you know, in the end, Yogi, I didn't do anything about it then because I didn't have any peers who were doing the same thing. And I was too scared. I didn't really have any support for that. It didn't seem practical. It was a big dream, but it's like like you said, we get so ingrained in our routines. Like, how does this even work? It was so far outside of anything I knew. I didn't have anyone saying, and you can do it. Right. So down the road, I was just becoming more and more, I think, mentally exhausted. I think I just wasn't feeling, you know, what I want is to feel that sense of extreme serenity and vitality and sort of calm trust that I'm moving in the right direction. And that's what I want for everybody and everyone I serve, all of my clients. That's what I want. And I wasn't having that. It wasn't happening for me. My defining moment when I finally did it, because what was happening was, I believe we get signs. I was asking for signs, and then I was doing what a lot of people do. I was getting the signs, but then I'm like, no, I want a different sign. I want one that I like. I want one that's better looking. I want one that's clearer, different words, whatever. So what I kept doing was trying to hold it together. Because like I said, I didn't want to change anything, although I wanted everything to change. And so what was happening was things were falling apart in ways that I couldn't hold them together, right? So like I wasn't getting my next gig together. Like at that time I was I was a consultant at Microsoft. The contracts weren't lining up, and there were like financially I was just really in a spot. And different relationships were going different ways. And so all of these things were conspiring so that all of signs were pointing toward the exit, as much as I was trying to will them to stay together. And so finally, I remember one day standing in my kitchen that I'd known this kitchen since I was born, basically. And it had never before occurred to me to sell this house. It was everything that kept me there. And I just said, what if I sold the house? And it was like the sun came out and a weight lifted. That was it. The moment I said, what if, it all shifted. I'm not going to tell you it was easy. There's a lot of logistics, but also just a lot of emotions and a lot of stuff to dig through. But it was absolutely the right thing. It was absolutely necessary. I would never be doing what I'm doing now if I hadn't done that.
That's, that is an amazing step. And it takes a lot of courage to move out of your comfort zone and move out of things, because your comfort zone could be someplace that is completely unhealthy for you, but you're comfortable there, but things aren't going to, you're not getting what you really need. You're not really happy. You're not really thinking, but you're comfortable.
Exactly.
So,
because you know it.
Right.
You know it. Yeah.
It's similar to the mentality of people who are in abusive relationships who keep going back to the abuser. And in a way, your relationship with life can be abusive if you allow it, if you stick yourself in a rut where you're not going anywhere and you don't do anything to change it.
Yep.
Other than wish.
Yeah. And that, it's so interesting you chose that analogy, because that was often how I thought of it, right? Because I would leave and come back and leave and come back from these different roles, and I wanted to do something different, but then I would go back, and there was always a honeymoon period, right? It's going to be different this time. It was never different. Now, here's the kicker. It wasn't about the company. It wasn't ever about the company. It was about me, right? The company is what it is, right? And I'm grateful for, years of, it meeting a need in my life. I am grateful for the experience I gained there. I am grateful for the people I met there, for goodness sake. And what's funny is I have so many dear friends from there who I either didn't actually work directly with, or I worked with only briefly. Like Carrie and I were only on the same team for just a hot minute, and they're still in my life all these years later. Right. So there are lots of gifts that came out of it. Right. But it wasn't about the company, but what I was doing is I was not choosing myself first.
Right.
Right. So whether it was the company or another person or whatever, I wasn't prioritizing myself first. And I think that one of the things that happens for folks, it was happening for me anyway, is that when we make changes later, it starts to feel like I have so much invested here. How can I step out without losing all that I've invested? And not just money, but time, the years, all of that. How can I like, I don't think I could stand it if I thought any of the time I'd invested was a waste of time. And yet I knew that I had done everything that I was supposed to do, and it still wasn't working. So I had to do something. And as it turned out, all of that experience, all those years, was preparing me to do exactly what I do now. So it's been an interesting working out for sure. But I don't know that you ever, for a long time, I kept expecting that there would be a time when I would just never be afraid. And what I have learned is that sometimes you just have to do it scared. That's the facts.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
So this whole experience is not only was it a risk going in there, but it changed your art. It changed how you viewed things. You had planned to write a certain way, a certain style, and now it's altered. So tell us a little bit about what you're currently doing, what your current books are, your blog is about.
Okay. So I am working on a first draft of a book. That's not coming out anytime in the nearest future. I am starting a podcast of my own, which I'm quite excited about. Let's see, there's like all this goodness. I do have an online community, a free Facebook group called Aileen Rae's Soul Spa Lounge, and we hang out in there. And it's for high performers, impactors, and leaders who are in like life reevaluation, transition, or just need some inspiration. So a lot of times it's hard to find peers, right? And so this group is a soft place to land and to come in and sort of get what you need, sort of an oasis, so that you can restore yourself, renew yourself, and get what you need so that you can go back out in the world and do what you do and shine. It's ridiculous to think that people who are leading and performing at a really high level can just do that all the time, and that it's sustainable without ever pausing to receive. A lot of us are really good at giving, but we never ask or receive. So that group is important to me, and I'm actually getting ready to ramp it up again in a much larger way. So there's that. And I am also doing client work. I'm working with folks, mainly one-on-one right now. But I will also have a group program in the new year as well. So
Very cool.
yes.
And you're
and I'm here, and that's really cool too.
And you're kind of helping. Well, you are helping people do that type of unique, unknown, scary transition that you went through, and we know just from stories that in the corporate world, the high performer world, there's a lot of stress, there's a lot of pressure. And often as a result, there could be a lot of substance abuse. There could be a lot of abuse at home. There's because that stress goes somewhere. Mm-hmm. So like you said, this isn't sustainable for a lot of people, and there needs to be a pathway out, but people are scared to take that pathway. So without going full inside baseball, but what are some things, how do you work with people to get them on the right spirit to chase their passion?
That's such a good question. Well, I'll tell you just straight away in my own experience. I have a list of about 6 things that I used to anesthetize the pain of not following my calling. And the top 3 were overwork and alcohol and food. And I have also, I struggled with depression and anxiety a good portion of my life. So that's something that I just share with folks up front. This just seems like a very organic place to share it. I'm not ashamed of it and I'm not proud of it. It just is. And so the self-medicating, the sort of coping stuff, it's real, right? And it gets into being like, it's sort of like the person who should be getting the comfort or the reward is actually getting punished, right? It's like the relief is actually painful. And so, but I was able to heal myself, and I never thought that would ever happen. Because I really felt like I was so broken that, you know, it would just be the work of a lifetime. That's why I came to the planet, was to heal. But as I kept showing up and doing my work, it's like, oh, I'm healed. Okay, well, that's not the end of the journey. You know, it's only the beginning. Now I'm going to share how I did it. So the first thing I do with folks is to get clear about their values. That's the first thing that we work on. Because if you don't know what you value, it's really hard to figure out what you want and start making intentional, actionable progress towards it. And it turns out that a lot of us just don't know. And looking back, I think it's easy for me to see that I had the same values, right? The things I said I valued, but I wasn't prioritizing myself first. I was not prioritizing those values as my compass and my guide. And so once I was able to identify my core values, and then those are the meter for everything, for everything in my life and livelihood, so that my yes can mean yes and my no can mean no. That I'm not saying yes when what I really mean is, I'm not saying maybe when what I really mean is no. And I think a lot of us do that, right? Just like, I don't want to say the bad thing, but it's like we carry all this extra weight because of what people will think of us. We think they'll think of us. And so initially it's about just giving permission, right? Just exhale and give ourselves permission to make this journey, make this work about you. It's not about anybody else. This is your time.
That's really cool. And to take stock in your values, I imagine it's a pretty often case where people do look at their values and then look at the position and the career path they're in and how at odds with their values they are. If they value family and they're spending, 12, 13 hours a day away from their family, only coming home to sleep, and they're not spending any time with their family. Or if they're prioritizing it, one of their priorities is travel, but yet all they do is work.
Yes, that's totally it. And I think, one of the things that people do also, well, I know that one of the things they do, I've done it, is we don't course correct, right? Often we don't. Because it's like we start out with good intentions. And it's incremental often, the way we get off course. And it's like, okay, and well, they gave me a nice raise here. And then, it's like, okay, and then you get a house, or you buy a car, and you have kids. I mean, I don't have any kids, but people just sort of start living life. And then, and okay, maybe you want a few toys for yourself, right? I get that. And then it just sort of starts to roll over you. And then one day you're like, hey, wait a minute, this feels not right. Is there more here? Realizing that, it's not doing it very intentionally at all. I still don't always make like the best life choices, right? But now I'm aware of my motive, my intention, and it just makes it easier to course correct. It doesn't have to get so far down the road, because it's a lot like being carried out to sea. And then, like, how do you find your way back?
Now, people who go their life and they feel like this hole that they're not pursuing and stuff, it often results in some pretty negative outcomes in their life if they're working in some place where they don't love where they're being, because I just being around some of the areas I've seen people in some of the career paths I've taken that focused on work entirely until the apocalypse basically happened in their life that they created. So what are some signs that you're heading down that path, that you're not taking care of yourself, you're not you're going at odds with your principles? What are some signs that you're heading to that burnout level, or that overstress level?
Oh, there are several. I'm thinking of how I felt. One of them right away is just dread of the day. Waking up and just not wanting to get up at all. Stress in traffic, stress getting to work. We're not really dealing with that right now so much. Or we could be dealing with it even more, because I think people, like, if people do have to go into a workplace, right? Like healthcare workers and all these businesses opening up again, right? There's a lot of stress associated with that. It's so dread. I also pay attention to physical signs. Like it's, it may seem like things are unrelated, but like heart palpitations, a stomach ache, a headache. The physical signs are usually the last thing, and your body's trying to tell you something. So I try to stop and ask what's going on. A lot of times, all of those things are related. I am in no way a physician, and I have no training in that area. I'm only saying what, in my experience, I have found that often those things are related. Like at one point, I broke out from head to toe with a rash that went all over my body down to it wasn't funny. It was really painful, down to my fingertips and all the way down to my feet. Well, that was like the last resort. That was my body saying, I can't take it anymore. That was my autoimmune system saying, I'm done. You've done everything to me. I also think just the thing of like not being able to let it go, needing to keep talking about whatever the injustice of the day or the moment or that person, the obsessiveness. Those are some signs. Everybody's got their own stuff, but those are a few signs, I think, of burnout. Some people like check out too by like sleeping a lot. And then, there's also like all the, and you don't necessarily have to be an alcoholic to drink a lot. But when you find yourself checking out, like not intentionally setting out to do something playful, but I need to avoid.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I worked in I've worked in several high stress industries, but one of the highest stress industries I worked in was actually group homes for at-risk kids, domestic violence, sexual assault shelters.
Yeah.
And I had a lot, going through mentally right now, and I'm ticking a lot of those boxes right when I worked in that field of the stress levels of how it was getting to me. I didn't necessarily have a lot of the physical manifestations other than the fact of weight gain and things from stress, but the sleeping, all that. So when you're hitting this level, what is something besides taking stock of your values, but what is something that you can do to help identify a new path to take and jump for it?
So I try to keep it so simple.
That's good.
I have to, because I can overcomplicate stuff in my mind in a minute. So I have to keep it simple. And usually I have never regretted taking a moment to take a deep breath, exhale completely, and ask myself, what do I need right now? And that can be as simple as, I need a snack and a nap. I'm serious, right? Because the other thing that I check is halt. Am I hungry, angry, lonely, or tired? Sometimes, or am I thirsty, right? So if I'm feeling some type of way, a lot of times I can knock the whole thing out just by having a snack, drinking some water, and taking a nap. And then I'm in a much better frame of mind to even deal with it. I think a lot of times we simply don't care for ourselves. For example, I don't know if people are still like this. They probably are. But when I first started my career, because I learned it and just did it for years and years, and I'm thinking of it now because my body is paying the price. There's a saying that the body keeps the score, right? So when I started my career, our habit was like, whatever it was that was happening, you do the opposite. So if you're hungry, you wait to eat. If you're tired, you just keep going. You don't go to sleep. If you have to go to the bathroom, you hold it, right? So just those kinds of basic things of taking care of yourself, pausing and doing that with kindness, being patient with yourself, and actually treating yourself the way you would treat another person. That right there is a starting place for your soul to actually maybe believe that you're ready to listen for what it wants.
Very cool.
For real.
Yeah, it's I mean, these are all simple yet challenging things to take stock in.
Simple's not easy.
Yeah, it's any kind of self-introspection is never an easy thing to do, and it's something I think we all struggle with on daily. We are going to be closing out because it's been about an hour, and I think this was a fantastic conversation, definitely a unique story, but I want people to know where they can find you and your different resources with your blog and everything like that. And I know you're changing things around right now, but where are the standard areas where people are going to be able to find you?
You can drop in at AileenRae.com. That will have all of the main contact points. AILEENRAE.com. All of the points. If you just want to stop by and say hi on Instagram, it's the real Aileen Rae.
Awesome.
Yeah.
All right, everybody. This has been an episode of the Fatty Joe Show with Aileen Rae. We are a listener-supported podcast. So if you want to support the podcast, go to patreon.com/the Fatty Joe Show and become a patron. If that's not something that you can do right now, please leave a comment down below, like, and subscribe to the show. And that helps us get out to more people. Aileen, it has been definitely a pleasure to have you on the show. I've been totally enjoying listening to this conversation. It gave me a little flashbacks of the truck as well. And a little bit of the gratefulness that I'm not on the truck anymore, so because I'm remembering some of the cool stuff, but like we talked about earlier, the whole like, oh, that place looks so cool, I want to go check it out. Oh, it's gone. Like that type of thing. As you drive by these really cool places and don't get to really see them. So it's
oh my goodness.
It's different. Yeah. So is Sunny D still on the road?
Absolutely not.
Cool.
Yeah, no, he hasn't been on the road for 2+ years. Yeah.
Nice.
We're still together about 100% of the time now. 95%, but yeah, no,
that's
not
cool.
that anymore. And he is handling our videography production house side of the business. He is
I'm seeing a lot of correlation.
Yeah, he's working. Yeah, we decided we would just do video production. He is working on getting our jewelry business fired up. He's working on his own music because he's a professional musician as well. He has a resume that is interesting, like yours. That would be an interesting conversation.
Yeah.
So, but no, he's not on the road, and I am so glad. We both are just like, thank you for all that helped us do. We couldn't have done it without that. So grateful, and so grateful to
say goodbye.
Doing it. I thank you for this conversation. It has just been a pleasure and an honor, and it was a delight.
Before you go, do you have a name for your podcast yet?
It is Aileen Rae's Soul Spa Lounge. Same name as my Facebook community. Yeah, thank you. Yeah,
awesome. Okay, so be sure to look out for Aileen Rae's Soul Spa
Lounge.
Soul Spa Lounge. Okay, so be on the lookout for Aileen Rae's Soul Spa Lounge, coming to podcast catchers everywhere.
I love it. Thank you.
Thank you for joining us on the Fatty Joe Show. Be sure to leave a comment and subscribe. It helps the show reach more people. To support the show, as well as Carrie Brown and Yogi's work on the blog, keto recipe development, masterclasses, and to gain access to private Facebook groups and other awards, go to patreon.com/The Fatty Joe Show or patreon.com/Carrie Brown. Also, check out our Carrie Brown and Yogi Parker YouTube channel for video versions of The Fatty Joe Show, recipe videos, and more. Join our awesome community on the Facebook group, The Keto Kitchen with Carrie Brown and Yogi Parker, and check out our carriebrown.com website for recipes, blog posts, discounts, cookbooks, masterclasses, and other great stuff. Thank you so much.